let's talk a little bit about Baker Mayfield. Now, we had touched on it. Not a great season, year two. How big of an advantage and how big of a difference do you think it will make in Kevin Stefanski's offense with an upgraded offensive line for Baker Mayfield? And did the things that you saw last year, are they correctable? And let's not forget Alex Van Pelt. I know I'm throwing a lot at you there, but now you have a different scheme, you have an improved offensive line, and you have a pretty good quarterback coach coaching him up as opposed to what there was last year.
Yeah, I give the Browns a ton of credit, right? They've put not only a great skill group around him, but now they're putting a great offensive line around him, at least the potential for a great offensive line around him. And that's important. You know, I think that the Browns have failed Baker in terms of structure above him, head coaching turnover, play calling turnover, all of those things that you don't want to see a young quarterback have to deal with in his initial run in the league. The Browns have failed with, but they are doing a good job putting the right group around him from a skill and talent positions around him. Like I said, the offensive line, the skill position players are very good. They're very good football players. And I think they feel like finally they have the right general manager and the right head coach that can provide some stability. Now, it stinks that year three, Baker's seen 4 head coaches and 3 different play callers. But the idea here is that this young man now can get some solidification moving forward and can really use the talent around him. He has to, find ways to function in this offense. And I think it's quarterback friendly. And I think anybody who's played in this offense, I read a lot from Sage Rosenfels about going into last year with Minnesota and why he loved this offense from his Gary Kubiak days. And that's where Stefanski really learned this offense, was the Gary Kubiak days. And obviously Kubiak was with Minnesota last year and they worked very closely. It's just super quarterback friendly, right? A lot of play action. They put a lot of burden on the offensive line and running game to be, effective and efficient. And Stefanski ran the football a ton last year. If you look at Kirk Cousins 2018 to 2019, the big difference is the amount of throws he was asked to make. They cut down on the amount of throws, but they increase their efficiency like crazy. So they get their quarterback out and move him. They do a ton of play action, which helps shorter quarterbacks being able to see down the field, helps them improve their sight lines, right? Which is important stuff. You have to be able to get out and see the field. And I think Baker sometimes needs to be able to get out and see the field from outside the pocket. So you'll see a ton of boot action. You'll see a ton of quick throws that involve him moving laterally. He will be asked to sit in and make some throws, but they'll be pretty defined reads. I think that's a good thing. West Coast offense stuff that I think they'll do in their 3-step passing game. It'll be very short pockets. They don't want to let, their tackles beat up field. They don't want Baker bailing. So I think a big point of emphasis, and I've heard Alex Van Pelt talking about changing Baker's pre-snap stance from the shotgun. It'll be sort of how he's able to sit in the pocket and step up and work forward, finding sight lines within the pocket instead of trying to bail out of the pocket laterally. I'm sure they're working with him like crazy on that virtually, and they're going to continue to work with that, because like I said, Minnesota's tackle depth was very short. So when you're envision tackles, keeping things inside a condensed U type of shape pocket, very, very, very much pushing ends upfield instead of allowing them to get beat inside. So they want to open up sight lines for Baker, and they'll do that with different pockets. They'll do that with moving him on play action, allowing him to use his excellent arm strength down the field and accuracy down the field in terms of deep shot throws. He's very good at those, come naturally to him. And then they'll certainly use different scheme things that are fun. If you watch any of the Vikings offense, and I wrote about this at the OBR too, I did a 4-part series on this. Ton of different screens. They throw tight end screens, halfback screens. Like Dalvin Cook had over 500 receiving yards last year. They'll get the running backs actively involved in targets like pretty often. I think Baker has to get better at checking the football down organically, but they do throw to their running backs often and allow those guys to work in space. So you know how good Kareem Hunt is catching the football. Allow Kareem Hunt to get in one-on-one situations and be the tackler. Nick Chubb can do the same thing. So they'll give Baker easier. I think the biggest thing going from last year to this year is they're going to ease the burden on what Baker has to read all the time, put him in a situation that I think will, for the first time in his career, be a scheme that is fit for him. And I think it's so important. You see Lamar, you see Mahomes, you see Wentz, these guys who are playing really well, Deshaun Watson, these guys who are playing really well have found the right play caller and the right system for them. It's unfortunate it might be year 3 that we finally see this for Baker, but it looks like it'll be there for him. So I hope people who are much smarter than me are claiming that he's going to have a bounce back year and that they'll be disappointed if he doesn't. It's justified. It's very justified. I think he's everything is there for him to make a bounce back in year 3, and I'm honestly expecting it.
Kind of interesting. The 2 things that come to mind as we talk about that, Charlie Casserly, Hall of Fame GM, said they're going to ask him to do less, which will increase his ability to do what he does best, being the Kevin Stefanski offense versus what he did a season ago. And then Greg Cosell from NFL Films said he can't wait to see Baker in this offense. He said he's a guy, and he's not ripping on Kirk Cousins. He says he has much better quarterback instincts and talents, arm talents and the like, than Kirk Cousins, and he thinks this system is a perfect fit for him. So he thinks, just based on what he's seen on film, there's a couple of things mechanically that if they correct, he's due to have a really big year. Do you kind of see where both of those guys are going?
Yeah, I mean, I think Kirk's a great quarterback. He's maximized every God-given ability he's had. Very cerebral football player. But it does not take much to see on film that he doesn't have elite arm talent. He doesn't have the ability to drive the football downfield from various platforms and different sort of on-the-move situations. There's no doubt he's not a great athlete outside the pocket. Baker, while not a great athlete, is a marginal athlete and is good enough when he gets out of the pocket and can create things with his legs. I expect him to run a little bit more this year, too, to create, some sliding situations where he can pick up some cheap first downs and keep the chains going. Those sort of things that come as a player can slow down the game a little bit. But yeah, I mean, arm talent, the ability to drive the football, all of those things are Baker's. A little bit more the natural instincts at the position are certainly in Baker's favor. Now, Kirk is kind of perpetually slept on. I think he's very smart. He has great football awareness, and those things work in Kirk's favor, and he's able to maximize a lot of his talents. But Baker just has to clean up the little nuances. I think Kirk does a nice job of selling and dedicating play action. He does a great job of keeping things as clean mechanically as he possibly can all the time in repetitive motions. I think Baker has to get there with those things. I think he has to really work his butt off selling play action, learning what the footwork is for his position in this offense. If he does those things, there's not a doubt in my mind. And it doesn't take a trained eye to see that Baker has more natural talent in his right arm to make some plays happen and make deep shot plays happen for them too. So certainly, I think if he cleans up those little things that we're talking about in terms of mechanics, some of the little things with some decision making that I think this offense will clean up for him, there's no reason to believe that Baker won't have a nice bounce back year in terms of, like, I could see him going for something along the lines of 30 touchdowns, 10 interceptions along that ballpark. And I think that's kind of the big end goal, is to push him towards that sort of Matthew Stafford tier of production and sort of getting the interceptions to be cut down too. So I think that there's no reason to believe that it won't happen that way.
And if that happens, Browns would be thrilled, and Baker identifies himself certainly as the franchise quarterback that the Browns think he can be.